Good morning and a very, very warm welcome to the conclave session today, which is Aspiring to the Supermind, the City of Evolving Consciousness. Sincere, heartfelt apologies for the confusion, for the rearrangement and everything else that has happened. And a truly, truly heartfelt gratitude for really accommodating us. So we were supposed to have the first session, Aspiring for the Supermind, what is Supermind as per the teachings of Sri Aurobindo. And we have different people from different streams of life coming here to just share the session. Since we were supposed to have this across 3 different rooms, we are now combining them in one. So we're going to be kind of making it a little short. And what we would love it is to make it a little bit more interactive. So the moderator for the session is Anu. And welcome. And really, really appreciate that. Welcome to Auroville.
Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Thank you, as Sudha just mentioned, that we are in a special situation, unexpected. But perhaps the Supermind is going to take us through many unexpected moments, which we don't really realize, to come to a shift in consciousness eventually. I will just read out a few lines from the Supermental Manifestation, in which Aurobindo said, "The essential character of Supermind is a truth consciousness, which knows by its inherent right of nature, by its own light. It has not to arrive at knowledge, but possess it. It may indeed, especially in its evolutionary action, keep knowledge behind its apparent consciousness and bring it forward as if from behind the veil." There, because we don't have much time. As we have combined this session with all the others, I would request each one of you to quickly introduce yourself, and then we will take it forward. So can I start with you?
Good morning. I'm happy to be here today. My name is Bhoomika, and
I'm involved in hospitality and the arts. Thank you.
I'm also from Chennai. Kritika Subramaniam is my name, and I'm basically creative. I'd like to think I'm a creative curator of both spaces and experiences.
Hi, good morning. My name is Uday. I used to teach critical thinking and Indian history at the Ashram School.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sarvi Shashi, and I happen to teach yoga.
Namaste. My name is Anmol. I stay in Pondicherry. I've been studying Sri Aurobindo and other spiritual literature for the last 6-7 years.
I am Gautam Ghoshal from Shantiniketan. I work on Sri Aurobindo and the Mother.
This is R.Y. Deshpande from Aurobindo Ashram, Pondicherry.
Namaste everyone, I'm Belu Mehra. I work at Aurobindo Society curating various programs and editing a journal related to Aurobindo's and Mother's works. And I live between Pondicherry and Auroville.
It's all a bit clumsy. We have online Srinivas Mulugu from the Aurobindo Society. Could you please introduce yourself, sir?
Namaste everyone. I am Srinivas Mulugu from Sri Aurobindo Society. I look after the centers and branches in the Andhra Pradesh and Telangana region. Thank you.
Thank you. We were also to have Aravinda Neelakandanji, but unfortunately his daughter had a fall. So he had to rush her to hospital. So we miss him, but part of this grand concert of people. Okay, so I think the best way to go forward now with the limited time we have is let us start with a round of 2 minutes for each one to give their thoughts on the topic. Aspiring for the Supermind, what does it mean to you? And how would you see yourself aspiring towards it? But you say exactly what you feel.
Okay, so I have a prepared speech. So in context, I was trying to read it. Okay. So anyway, so Supermind, what I was trying to talk about is I'm not an Aurobindo scholar. I have not read too many of his texts, but I was trying to talk about the supermind or the subconscious mind in terms of practical daily living, which applies to the common man, to the layman's understanding. Thank you.
So I was born in a Theosophist family in a fairly Brahminical upbringing. So we had the tug of war between ritualistic religion and Theosophy planted in our brain at a very young age. So I think in evolving who I was in the midst of all this has made me achieve some realization. And it's come with a lot of reading and some crazy life experiences. So I would like to think I don't think supermind is something that I would say is realizable, but being on the path, I think definitely can enhance.
Okay, so in lieu of some prepared remarks, because it's such a difficult subject, the supermind, I'm just going to read a little bit of a couple of suggestions from the mother and then from Sri Aurobindo, and I'll end it there. Mother says the most important thing, it seems, is to remember this fact. Even when one doesn't have the tangible experience, to have the certainty of it and faith in it. To remember always, to recall it constantly, to go to sleep with this idea, to wake up with this perception, to do all that one does with this great truth as the background, as a constant support, this great truth that we are witnessing the birth of a new world. And she continues saying, we can participate in it, we can become this new world. And truly, when one has such a marvelous opportunity, one should be ready to give up everything for its sake. And this whole context of this passage is in regards to the supermind, to still have faith in it and to not regard it as a distant, unrealizable, but something that one must absolutely work towards. In fact, the last two sentences that I would love to read and put before you are from Sri Aurobindo, in regards to a very profound question which he asks, which is, what is the right use of our existence in the universe? I thought this question itself was a beautiful question to reflect on, but here comes the direct and very, very potent answer. This is thy work and the aim of thy being, and that for which thou art here, to become the divine Superman. If thou hast a duty, this is thy duty. If thou ask, what shall be thy aim, let this be thy aim.
Thank you. Like she said that I'm not a scholar in this subject, but I can tell you a little bit of how I related with yoga. And I believe that there is a lot of similarities between both, which is, I think Supermind is a journey and not a destination. And like how people say, we practice yoga to be and not to become. And I also believe that Supermind is the process of being and not to become. So yeah.
To continue, or rather, use Uday's cue, what he said regarding remembering that, going to sleep with the idea that the new world is being born. Mother said something even more concrete. He said this on 4th June 1958, a little more than 2 years after the new world was born. She says, to console you, because people were not able to feel the advent of the supermind in the Earth's atmosphere, very few people were able to feel it. So she says, to console you, I may say that by the very fact that you live on Earth at this time, whether you are conscious of it or not, even whether you want it or not, you're absorbing with the air you breathe this new supramental substance, which is now spreading in the Earth atmosphere. He uses the word supramental substance. Okay? And it is preparing things in you which will manifest very suddenly as soon as you have taken the decisive step. Since it is something which is not part of the experience of a lot of us directly, I mean, it can happen through aspiration, the grace can reveal it to us. So the thing which can be most useful, and I was lucky to find this reference in the Synthesis of Yoga, wherein Sri Aurobindo tells us that what is supermind in the what he calls the higher hemisphere, in our psychology, it translates as faith. I'll just read the relevant lines from the Synthesis of Yoga. This is page number 44. He says, faith is a reflex of the lower consciousness of a truth or real idea. So the standard definition, if I might say, which he has used in the Life Divine for the supermind is truth consciousness. The word having been taken from the Rig Veda, Ritachit, right? Truth or real idea. I'll just repeat from the beginning. Faith is a reflex in the lower consciousness of a truth or real idea, yet unrealized in the manifestation. Basically, it is the knowledge, the perfect knowledge of the supermind, which wants to know itself, and it has ideas about itself, its self-conceptions. It is those real ideas which translate in our psychology as faith. And then the next sentence, it is this certainty of the idea which is meant by the Gita when it says, Yo yat shaddhaha sa eva saha. 17.3. Whatever is a man's faith or the sure idea in him, that he becomes.
Thank you very much for asking me to speak on the supermind. But all the time we're speaking of the supermind, we forget that from all the time Sri Aurobindo was speaking of the supermind from 1914 onwards. Between 1916 and 1920, Sri Aurobindo was writing essays on the Gita. We are talking of the supermind, but ignoring the base Sri Aurobindo wanted to create. Now, why did he give so much of stress on the Gita? Because you cannot take a leap into the supermind unless the base is prepared, starting from your technique of the work enlightening knowledge, knowledge enlightening love, love enlightening knowledge. That is how Sri Aurobindo prepares the base of his yoga. And for the first time, because for Sri Aurobindo, everybody took devotion, work, and knowledge separately. For the first time, there is one speaking on the Gita by taking all those parts together, bypassing the aspect of Tantra a bit, but touching on it here and there. Now, this is the base, and we have to remember that to take deep to the supermind or the city of dawn, because Sri Aurobindo was repeatedly stressing on his text, on that text. Read essays on the Gita, read essays on the Gita. Because we are not yet prepared to even imagine what the supermind is. Now, I won't speak more because I'm sitting by the greatest living Savitri scholar in the planet. Pass on to.
Hello. I will say "29th March 4 p.m. in the ashram guest house. A new history started opening with that. In the entire annals of spirituality, there was never a moment more splendid than that. It was a meeting of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. mother did herself entirely, even though. Then, a little while later, when they meditated together, after coming out of it, out of the meditation, the mother told Sri Aurobindo, I saw a new world somewhere up there. A new world somewhere up there. And she asked him, will that new world manifest? Sri Aurobindo said, one single word, yes. And the entire world came down that very instant on 29th March 1914 at 4 p.m. But a long spiritual yoga tapasya had to be done. The seed of the new world was already there. After that long spiritual tapasya, you have here now the physical realization of it in Auroville. So the first birth of Auroville is actually in that first meeting of theirs. That is the importance of this city, of this place, of what has to be in the manifestation upon earth that was already seated there, and it is now in the process of getting materialized. Yes, the divine had taken full possession of it. The divine had taken the decision to hold everything in his hand. But then, it is not that way that things had to happen. Things had to happen ultimately in the process of time, in the process of society, in the process of human problems, in the process of evolution. And that is why human instrumentation becomes equally important. The human instrumentation has not yet fully risen. It is readiness all these problems here, all kinds of problems here. But the problems cannot be solved by judiciary. The problems cannot be solved by going to the courts. Problems cannot be solved on the political platforms. The problems cannot be solved in the society, not in the administration, not in the management. None of these is going to help. The mother says, if you have difficulties, you put them to the divine. And that is the only solution. That is the only solution. To put our divine. And it is the divine's responsibility now to see that it is sorted out. All our preparation has to be able to put all our problems, all our aspirations, all our longings to the divine and ask him to take charge of things. That is the only way. And I hope this is what we shall be striving to do, because there is no other way at all. There is no other way at all. Well, these are my brief comments. Let me see.
Deshpandeji.
So I just want to remind all of us here that, at one time when somebody asked the mother this particular passage, that how is the supermind going to act and what should we do to receive it? And she mentioned that, most of the times we don't take the trouble to find answers, and Sri Aurobindo has answered many of these things. And she referred to one particular passage in his writings on the Veda, and she reads out that sentence where she says, this is Sri Aurobindo saying, the supramental world has to be formed or created in us by the divine will as the result of a constant expansion and self-perfecting. So all three key phrases, it's going to be created in us by the divine will. And then later on she expands that, why do you ask? You have to do it. Who is asking you to do it? It's the divine who is going to create this. What you have to do is to work on this constant expansion and self-perfecting. And elsewhere, Sri Aurobindo had said that, to me, a square is the symbolic representation of supermind, because it has all those four aspects that he later on described in 4 aspects of the mother: the wisdom, love, that is delight, power, and perfection. And also, I guess we can call it progress, constant progress. So self-perfecting and constant widening of the consciousness, and as Deshpandeji said so beautifully, relying on the divine constantly is the way we can prepare for that higher consciousness to work in us. So in the city of consciousness or anywhere in the world, that's the key that Sri Aurobindo gives us and the mother reminds us. So I'll just end there.
Thank you. Srinivasji, could you come on now? Could you, your comments now. Please go ahead.
For me, perhaps Supermind is the promise of Sri Aurobindo, and it is also a relief. A relief because we have the certitude that a glorious future awaits humanity and that we are not confined and condemned to the present difficulties and problems. That there is something beyond where we are and something better that we can become. As well as the work of how we proceed, Sri Aurobindo's injunction on education, from near to far, the individual and the collectivity. There is much work at the individual level, and then comes the collectivity. Mother has said somewhere that we all do not have to proceed in the same linear vertical format that Sri Aurobindo had arrived at, plane after plane, from the mind to the higher mind and the intuitive mind and all of that. That today, with the supermind being in the terrestrial atmosphere, we can be in contact with it, provided, of course, we make the individual effort. And a few points that I noted on this topic: at least consciously working on arriving at a silent mind as opposed to the chaotic mind that we are normally used to. In a few years of our life, arriving at least some glimpses of a silent mind. Asking ego to abdicate the throne it occupies in the center of our life as individuals. This is both a philosophical or a theoretical construct, but also when one is meditating and one goes beyond the frontiers of ego, or when is about to break the thresholds of ego, there is a fear that comes in, that the body shudders. So it is not just a mental progress. Even in our meditation, the ego has to dissolve at some level into a larger self. Then, of course, the mother says the first word of supramental yoga, Sri Aurobindo says this, the first word of supramental yoga is surrender. Its last word also is surrender. And speaking of surrender, mother talks about the surrender of one's character, every aspect of what we are and what we identify ourselves to be, which itself is again a lot of tapasya in a way. When she was asked about the characteristics of Superman, perfect equanimity, said the mother. And we all know how far we are from that. But consciously laboring on these individual elements. And as we do this, one sentence by the mother about the psychic being and the supermind. If by repeated efforts you have entered into contact with your psychic being, then the door is wide open. Through the psychic, you can suddenly have a very clear and beautiful vision of what the supermind is. So silencing the mind, abdication of the ego, surrender, perfect equanimity, all of these gradually bring us closer to our psychic being for that to open the door towards the supermind. This to me, these are some of the key elements on the individual sadhana side. And Aurobindo speaks of it, it is still a theoretical construct to some extent. The inalienable unity of things, Sri Aurobindo says. I recall an anecdote from the Chronicles of Auroville, where when Kirit Joshiji was the chairman, and there was a chairman of the board, and there is a meeting, and there are different opinions and differing approaches. Somewhere his guidance was, at the outset, we need to at least agree on one thing, that we are all united by a common vision and common good of Auroville. So let us go back to that and start the discussion on this subject from there. Somewhere the practicality and the theory came together for me when I was narrated this episode. And of course, one is, once the inalienable unity is discovered, the effort, Sri Aurobindo points this out, of many in one and one in many, can we bring it down? In Sri Aurobindo's words, the same everywhere in soul essence, but varying in soul form. So in the collectivity somewhere, even if we are trying to make it happen at the mental level, struggling for that soul essence, even though the soul form is diverse. This is the individual and the collectivity coming together for Supermind. And as far as Auroville is concerned, each place has its distinctive form, distinctive air, distinctive feel of the earth. And if there is one place where the mother herself has infused the light for spiritual progress, it is Auroville. So we look forward to the city of dawn leading us into this supramental future.
Thank you so much. Srinivasji, thank you very much for that introduction. I will just take it forward because I'll wind in all the other panels. Since he has just spoken, can you hear me? This? Yeah, so I'll just take the bridge from what you said, Srinivasji, is into Auroville. Now, there's one very interesting letter of Sri Aurobindo in the 1930s, wrote to his disciples. And he said, I have got it by the tail, talking about bringing down the supramental. That's such an amazing image, that got it by the tail. Fully there, but it's coming down. Now, at the same time, the mother had actually asked the architect who was building Golconda, prepare a plan for the city. She had been asked in 1931, because Sri Aurobindo had retreated, what is the work that you all are? So she said, the work that we are carrying on now, Sri Aurobindo has. It is a work in the consciousness. It is a work of connection, consciousness and matter. Once this link, connection is made, it has to have effect in material life, in the form of a model town. And this is something that was 31. They asked for the model to be made. But in between, the Second World War intervened, and their entire attention turned towards that. Many stories to that. And finally, in 1950, advent of what was called mother announced that. Almost immediately after, started to look for a land, Auroville. And so this connection, I just bring you this connection of the descent of the whole point of consciousness and the city. It is not just one more city where we have buildings and life. It is make this whole thing manifest. Other interesting thing about the city is the plan. Now, in 1954, she started saying things like, she started giving messages like new forms needed, manifest, harness. And she spoke of a spiraling movement of consciousness above the earth, which had to be brought down and given form. So when she invited the architect to prepare the city plan, he began with an extraordinarily good, excellent, conventional city we all know as modern towns, which apparently was cast aside immediately until he came to a circular pattern, centric pattern, and very good going. And this architect, who was a very well-known person in his own field at that time, Roger Auger, he had to go through 3 or 4 different models, very all worked out in great. It was only when he came to something called the galaxy as a spiraling double movement, really this a galaxy which is coming down, that was accepted. And once that was accepted, the Charter of Auroville was written. Now, the Charter of Auroville is very interesting, and that is how Auroville was inaugurated. Bring you to that. It encapsulates the whole effort of this. Once the connection is made, it has to have the material life. And the Charter says that Auroville has to carry life and the spirit. So that is what the plan itself embodies. This is there. I would like to welcome other panelists. There's Margarita, who had the topic of, there is Soumya. Soumya has
I just want to mention one thing, that when we talk about the supermind has been there right from the beginning. It was not that came down sometime, it is there right from the beginning. It is part of the eternal consciousness. And this creation, in a way, was planned in the supermind. So what happened in 1956? Before the supramental manifestation, the supermind was separated from our mental consciousness by a veil or a lid. Not that it was absent. So 1956, the supermind is here now, hands-on. And what does the supermind mean? Essentially means that the omnipotence of the divine consciousness is now here. So we have always said that thing here, run by the divine. But now that consciousness is accessible to our mental consciousness. It's like an awareness, like when you're in the house, you are in the awareness. But the moment you go into the road, into the street, into the highway, you are aware that there is traffic around. Maybe there in the background, but it is something that conditions your actions. And Auroville and Ashram are basically supposed to be the forerunners. Like Mother said, we are here to do what others cannot do. And as some of the panelists said, we have to remember constantly that the supermind is now here. So what does it mean? How do we aspire for it? Like rightly said, we have that faith, and should be a dynamic faith. Mother told one of the early ashramites, Udar Pindu, when he asked about the sadhana, said, what do you do when you brush in the morning? And he said, I do. He asked, am I there with you when you are brushing your teeth? A very important point. That now remember that there is this consciousness waiting, asking for our call, asking that we bring it into each and every small action of our life. Whatever we want, whatever we try, whatever we act in, we bring the supermind it as a part of our consciousness. You ask for that. Ask and remember that this consciousness is present and accessible. I leave it at that for now, and can just think.
Have another security directive that instead of 11 o'clock, we have to wrap up at 10:30, which means the other speakers, we are going to give you Soumya, would
Hello, everyone. I discovered Auroville as a teenager. One of the most incredible moments of discovery was when I come from a background of textile design. So I worked with matter, real things. In the field I was, it's superficial to a large extent, the way it was approached. But what I found, so I had always a conflict with matter and spirit and in this discovery, and what I found so phenomenal, when I came to Auroville is this line from Sri Aurobindo where the ascetic has denied matter and the materialist has denied the spirit, and we are here for the amalgamation of both the matter and the spirit. And this is so fascinating, working with matter, working with beauty and aesthetics, that the aspiration is the amalgamation of the two. And for that to constantly aspire for that perfection, to create the possibility of perceiving beauty and art and culture from a different space. And for me, Auroville is such a wonderful platform. It's such a great launch pad that artists, designers can come here and look at matter from a very, very deep perspective. So this is a little story about me.
little glimpse. Ambu, would you come? Ambu has been working with the city, he has worked with the architect of the city plan.
Good morning, all. I'm Anbu, and I had a good opportunity to work with Roger, the person who designed the galaxy, and I traveled with him almost last 20 years. And in my experience, he's my inspiration, the sincerity and dedication that he has given. And definitely after he passed away, they went very slow. And I do notice now something is coming more forward, and I'm happy to see all of you. And thanks, and let's put all our energy together to build the city. Thanks.
Okay, would you like, anyone else would like to make a reference to Naraji? Would you like to speak on this topic? Okay, what it seems is that the session which was supposed to happen from 11:30 to 12:30 has been cut short. They said 10 to 11. Now even that seems a little difficult, so they're asking us to wrap this program and move to the auditorium by 11 o'clock, which means we only have, say, half an hour to 1 hour maximum.
Everybody who's invited. Yeah. Yeah. So let Margarita, 2 minutes. Narad, can we do this? Can we do this?
Tell me when.
Margarita.
Thank you. Yes, 2 minutes to say three things. 1969, Apollo 12 bring down to the Earth one camera who was exposed to 2.5 years in the moon atmosphere. You can imagine. From that camera, one of the breakthrough discoveries, microorganisms can survive any harsh condition. That was in 1969. 2019. What means that discovery for Auroville, farmers, economy, and research? That along with Tata companies, we had created one surplus in the total India GDP, the 0.92%, and one total the agricultural GDP of the 6.32% year by year, and giving to 280 lakhs farmers one income to go from 1.5 to 3.2 lakhs per year. But what is the origin of 1969 and 2009? Half century after, half century before. That means 1 century from now. Was mother in 1919 who has this epidemic in Japan, mask and people by thousands dying. What she say is the last thing I'm going to read. I am trembling because I had Parkinson, not because I am fear of you. I'm going to tell you something. What people take to be micros is simple dematerialization of one vibration or one will from another world. When I learned of these medical discoveries, I say to myself, truly science is making progress. One might almost say with greater reason, matter is progressing. It is becoming more and more receptive to one higher will. And what is translated in the science as microbes will be perceived in one goes to the root of things, one simple vibratory mode, or this vibratory mode is the material translation, the one higher will. If you can bring this force, or this will, or this power, or this vibration, you name it, whatever you want, into certain given circumstance, not only will it act in you, but also through contagion around you. Matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Margarita. Vikram Kota, please come forward. Would you just...
Namaste. I'm not a scholar of Supermind or Supermentalist. I'm just learning. I just came here as a seeker. I'm just learning. I'm the CEO of GRT Hotels. I'm in hospitality. So for me, it's a very deep subject, Supermind. But I believe that in daily life, as we seek high performance, and when we look at this, the way we do the path to high performance is to prepare your mind. I think it's the same path to the Supermind. I think the mindset is the first step when you're talking about high performance, and for a Supermind to To get that higher, to go to the higher plane of supermind, you need to have a proper mindset. You need to take out those limiting beliefs and then prepare your mind. And then you have to have your behavior, which is your second step. I feel that's very important. And I think we have been practicing in everyday life. And I think I'm just realizing that I'm preparing my mind to be a super mind. And I think, like the people said, it's a journey. It's not the destination. I think it's a journey. And I am just starting my journey. And I feel that a super mind is also the collective collaboration when you're going to solve complex problems. I think that's one of the ways which in the present world we can solve all the problems. And I think this is a beautiful intended, intentional community. I think it's a very conscious city, and I really feel that I'm attaining a kind of a peace when I come in here, and I think that's the start for my journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Until we wait for the others, Narad, could we request you to come?
Good morning, all. And I'm here today to speak to you about the Mother's Flower Garden. It is not the Mother Flower Garden, it's the Mother's Flower Garden. We must understand the difference. I have been working for so many years in horticulture, guided by the Divine Mother. I started when I was about 7 years old, and now I'm a little older. So I want to talk to you about this magnificent vision that some of these young people, including me, have had. And that is a garden that will be the inspiration of beauty for all of Auroville. It will have a collection which has not been done before, although many times it has been attempted. A collection of all the significances of the flowers named by the Mother. And there are almost 900 of them. So in time, the weather will change. We know that. We'll have cooler climate, and we will have the possibility of cold climate flowers, which Mother knew when she was in France. The work that's being done by Poonam, Rabi, Neil, Jyoti is a seminal work, because we are in an area from the solar kitchen all the way up to the AHA kindergarten, many, many acres to design. We want to involve children as much as possible. Children and anyone who wants to work with the land, with the flowers, with the soil. In fact, there are so many beautiful ideas, and I just want to share a couple of them with you. Each Aurovillian would have the possibility to have a plant that he will take care of in Mother's Flower Garden. On one's birthday, one could get a plant and plant it in one's own garden and care for it. It's amazing to see how the change occurs in our consciousness when we work with flowers. It is something that is beyond speech, actually. We cannot physically identify the force that Mother has put into the flowers. Each flower has a vibration that can transform us, that can help us rise from where we are to a much higher plane of consciousness. And when I worked with Mother, on this. I have many letters from her. I had many meetings with her in which she talked to me about the flowers and the flowers at the Matrimandir, of course. And I consider Mother's Flower Garden, along with the Matrimandir and Savitri Bhavan, to be the three greatest events in Auroville. We do need your help. We need your help in all kinds of ways, financially, physically, and from within, your prayers, your aspiration for this realization of beauty. May I ask Una to say a few? Sorry,
we really regret, because the whole team is actually here from Mother's Flower Garden. They came prepared. But as you see what has happened to our whole program today, and we are trying our best to integrate everybody from all the different panels. We are very sorry to leave you out, all of you out. Yeah? Okay. So next we will call on Torkil, and then Tuan, and then Hans. Torkil, please come forward.
My name is Torkil. I'm an economist and Aurovillian. It's a bit humbling as an economist to stand here today to talk something about economy and consciousness. Economy is seen as something where the vital is much more important than consciousness. So I will try a little bit to do that in a humble way anyway. I would just say that economy actually comes from the Greek word ekonomia, which actually means household. So economy is, from its humble origin, is actually just about how to run a household. And you could say that kind of knowledge has been a servant of humanity in the evolution of many, many years. In the last 10 generations, economy has taken a big, you could say, leap into being much more important. And especially one big step was taken by one economist, which we all refer to as one of the leading economists. His name is John Maynard Keynes. And he created the tools after the big economic crisis in 1929, where everything collapsed for years and millions of people were put into poverty. He created the tools, which is called the Keynesian economy, which we actually all live in today. He created the tools that actually created a kind of more or less constant growth. He created the consumerism. But he was also the economist who really warned everybody that this was not going to be forever. He actually said in 1933 that this should only be done in 100 years because this would have no meaning in itself. He only created these means to get people into kind of prosperity. But he also said very clearly that the real values of life is art, literature, spirituality, and knowledge. It is not consumer products. And he said that in 1933, so actually 100 years, we are running out of time now for economy to be important. And as an economist here today, I will actually say, maybe it's time that economy steps back, that economy has been a servant. Maybe for 100 years it took over to be a master, but it's time that he steps back to be a servant. And Keynes said it, he was very funny always, and he said it very, very humbling as an economist to praise him. He said, economy should be like a dentist. It's a man you go to when you have a problem, but else you will stay away from him. So coming back to Auroville here, I think Auroville could be that example. We in Auroville say that Auroville should be a place for a rich and beautiful life, but it's not a life of very rich in consumer goods and other things. So I think maybe one of the things that Auroville could and should be an example that life is so rich from other things that it's a good example for people how you can step back from the road we are on now, which everybody understands is not bearable. This economic blind growth cannot continue. I think even all economists face that truth. So maybe that's the reason for Auroville, and that's what we should do, to be a place where a beautiful, rich life can be seen as something beautiful and not just economy. Thank you.
May I call Jaya? Where is Jaya? Where is she? Not there. Yeah. Jaya, come. So we are unfortunately, because of the whole situation, we are fluctuating from topic to topic. Jaya comes back on the city. Okay.
So my name is Jaya. I live in Auroville since many years. I came first time in 1971. And since the 90s, I have become involved with the city and the work. But actually, already in the very early 70s, in UNESCO career, I saw the galaxy and the Matrimandir, and that I can still see those pages in front of myself. So somehow I already at that time understood that this was something very important. I have also written something, but I will do it very short because of the time. So for me, what is very important is actually the city. The city, when I have studied the drawings from Rocher and his team, I can see the development and how, when I see my own way of sadhana, how one thing pushes within to manifest. You see it in the drawings, how there is a force that is coming and how it moves, and you can see Mother's influence to move Rocher through these movements up from the first circular forms up to the galaxy. And when you start to study the galaxy, for me, starting with the Matrimandir, starting to see that this symbol, this matrix, is actually into every detail a living reality. And that living reality of the key elements of the galaxy is actually working together with us. It is not that we are just growing consciousness. Actually, that city is growing our consciousness. It's a collaboration between the society and the material reality. I think this is very, very important. It goes from the Matrimandir, which we basically have Mother symbol, the Matrimandir, the petals, the gardens. We can see the whole oval with the amphitheater, I say human unity, and the garden of unity, and then the garden of the unexpected. And then we have the international zone. We have the residential zone, the cultural zone, the industrial zone. We have the greenbelt surrounding. And we have the 4 parks which connects the city with the greenbelt. We can see that the crown is very, very instrumental. It's very interesting when Alok Pandey, in one of his talks, referred to the crown as the Sudarshan Chakra. Because somehow the force is coming now. So we see the soul, we see this Sudarshan Chakra. And I so happened that the day after I had seen the video with Alok Pandey, I had a session with Richard on the secret of the Veda. And there, the piece that he had chosen to read, I just will do this shortly. He is basically mentioning another name for Vishwakarma. So Richard went to his Sanskrit dictionary to look, and then he reads out about Vishwakarma. How he has a son and a daughter. How this daughter is to marry the sun god. This is, we get the symbolism comes right into us. But she cannot approach. The light is too strong. So Vishwakarma takes the disk of the sun, put it on his lates, and cuts the rim off. Now she can approach. And this rim, from this rim, he creates the Sudarshan Chakra, the Trishul of Shiva, and the weapons for the other gods. When Richard was reading this, I felt myself to be that daughter as humanity, being able to approach the supramental through this city where this vital of ours, which is blocking so much, will actually be transformed. So the city, all the key elements of the city are important. It's not that we can do a turn here and a turn there. You cannot make a Sri Chakra and then put some triangles in different directions. That is the kind of city we have, and it is so important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jaya. We still have a number of people. Before I call there's an Auroville youth who's going to speak about education along with somebody else. Before they come on, I would like Hans, who wants to read something out. He was one of the moderators, and I would just like him to read that, and I'll call the others in.
The first, when I thought of the session, I went to this little book and opened it, and there it was. So I thought, the work of achieving a continuity which permits one to go up and down and bring into the material what is above is done inside the consciousness. He who is meant to do it, the avatar, even if he were shut up in a prison and saw nobody and never moved out, still would he do the work. Because it is a work in the consciousness, a work of connection between the supermind and the material being. He does not need to be recognized. He needs no outward power in order to be able to establish this conscious connection. Once, however, the connection is made, it must have its effect in the outward world in the form of a new creation, beginning with a model town and ending with a perfect world.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Do we have Nawab Asaf Ali? Are you? Okay, because we were told you're still on your way, so we were waiting for you actually. So please, yes, please come.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anu. So I'll stand. A very good morning to all of you here. I'm Mahmood Asif Ali, and I'm the Diwan to the Prince of Arcot. I'm from Chennai. First of all, it's a great honor to be here at the Auroville. My wife, Seema, is here with me, and when we walked in this lovely space, so we felt a kind of an inner peace and a tranquility, so that says it all. I've been invited to talk on the topic, importance of human unity. So I guess we don't have much time, and I should take only 2 or 3 minutes. I would like to mention that for any community, for any nation to prosper, so any nation, it stands on many verticals, many pillars, I would say, or any community, be it education, politics, business, economy. And all these pillars, they stand on a foundation called peace and harmony. And if the foundation is missing, if there is peace and harmony missing in that community or in that nation, all the pillars fall. They all crack. And this foundation of peace and harmony stands on a super foundation called unity. I'm not an expert on this topic, but I speak from my heart. And today, as a global community, a race called human beings, we are not as united as we can be, or the potential we have to be. I think we are dividing ourselves in the name of caste, religion, faith. And I believe that comes with a bit of an ignorance to understand each other. Ignorance will create kind of a fear of the other race or caste or community, and that fear leads to hatred, and that hatred leads to refugees, and that creates a kind of a division which destroys the unity. So I think we have to work our way backwards, where we try to understand each other. I think today, I'll just take 2 minutes. Today we are divided globally. The first thing which divides us, or we are destroying ourselves, is in the name of faith and religion. So if we understand each other on that basis, if we try to understand each other in the name of faith, or stop saying that my religion is the best. We should refrain from saying that I'm a Muslim, Islam is the best. I'm a Hindu, Hinduism is the best. I'm a Christian, Christianity is the best. I think we should go beyond that and say I'm a human, humanity is the best. I think if we come through that angle, everything falls in place. And I think I'll finish by saying that to understand each other is to accept each other's faith and religion and the caste and whatever color you create, you come from. And the best way to understand is to read the authentic scriptures of that faith, not look at me or look at you or look at and understand, say that, this is their religion. Don't paint the entire community based on what I do. I think that will unite us, and that will create one global race called human beings. I think that's what I see here in this lovely space called Auroville. And I think I'm coming here, I think we're coming here first time to this space. And from now, I think what we felt after coming here, the inner peace, I think that will make us come again and again back and to understand more about it. I once again thank each and everyone for listening to me so patiently. Thanks to Auroville for having me. It's a great honor to be here amongst all your lovely personalities. I can go on and on, but I think I have to stop myself. Aren't we supposed to clap in Auroville? Oh, that's why. That's why. I was trying to clap and I stopped myself. But thank you so much. God bless you all. God bless you. Thank you.
Compromising on time. Just for you to know that we used to write South Arcot as part of our address originally. And what you speak of is actually part of Sri Aurobindo's first dream, the 5 dreams, which will be read out today. So, you're welcome. We would like to conclude now. Pardon? Now we're doing Nahar and we would like to invite Nahar, who will speak on education, Auroville's education, and Srivatsa on architecture. They have an idea that they don't want to be boring, they want to speak together. They will do it as a conversation. Please come forward. Yeah, we'll seat you. Can you go and be seated, please? Yeah. Here, yeah. Let's take it over.
Hello? Yes. Just think about a city which is not just only for survival, a city which is not just only for living. When we talk about city, it's all about living. Do I need the day-to-day life? Does it give me experience of happiness? So these are things which is what generally a city aspires for. And what we are actually trying to look here, or what does Auroville see, it's probably the first time a vision-driven city, a city which can celebrate art, a city which actually has education as a core part of itself, a city which actually talks about equality and balance, a city which talks about a sustainable future, a city which is very visionary-driven, a city which encompasses everything which you could actually aspire for. And in that, what is really interesting for me personally is education. How can a city itself be a platform to provide education, to provide knowledge, to make sure that, that people can actually grow from their inner self? I think that is what is really interesting for me. I think Nahar, probably you could start sharing about your experience about how a city could be. And this, what we are looking at, is not something which is actually new. In modern world, there are few cities which have started moving in that direction. Even if you look at Ashram doesn't have a structured campus, and Pondicherry does not stay outside the structured campus, which is how usually Many of the campuses or institutions in India or abroad are based out of. If you go to Boston, you could really see like MIT and other places, which are very much part of that city. Like education actually happens as a part of the culture of the city. So what we are actually looking at is how can education be part of the culture of the city? How can art be celebrated as a part of that education? Yeah, Nahar.
One of the things which was very important for Mother is never-ending learning. The only way we get a place which allows people to learn throughout their lives is rethinking how we work and what the job means. If we think of a job as somewhere where you go and learn, we get a much more hospitable environment for people to go and change careers and go to many jobs, and each time they pick something else. One of the things which we do not really need in the world going forward is people who are ChatGPT per se. Because we are moving towards a world where knowledge is at a Google, just one Google away, and soon you'll get it as a text. What we need is people who are multifaceted, and they have a wide aspect of many skills, and they can bring the skills together and use them to create new ideas and innovate. One of the things which Auroville has begun and is beginning to go into is creating hundreds of small businesses which let people walk in, pick up a few skills, and move on. It's something I've also started working on with what I do is Kajimba. We make ginger ale. I work with teenagers from 16 to 18, 19. Because one of the things I realized growing up is that teenagers really want to work. It's something and money is something that's really important for them, that small amount of independence. So that's something I set out to bring in. And I've had a very positive experience with a lot of teenagers that come. Initially we did manufacturing and logistics because we make soft drinks. Now they do a lot of photography and product styling, and they just learn on the job. For me growing up, it was also something that was very pivotal, that if you learn and you get used to functioning in a team and to get projects executed very young, you become a much more intelligent entrepreneurial adult, which in Auroville definitely, it's really hard to be an employee, so you have forced to be an entrepreneur. In the broader world going forward, you will also have people who are multifaceted, and that will definitely be an aspect of a new humanity which is not people simplified to machines and robots, but people who are their own rethinking individuals.
Actually, just building to what Nahar has been saying, the one thought which actually came to me when he was making this conversation was, how can you claim that the city actually provides you knowledge? Is it just only by teaching, or how can it be experiential? The core part of Auroville, what it sees is is based on a certain form. Now, is this form really important for providing knowledge? In my little bit of an experience, I would say yes, because one of the primary things of gaining knowledge is also to unlearn. And how do we unlearn ourselves? How do we consciously move towards unlearning ourselves in a day-to-day life when we move forward? Just to give you a small example, let's say you have the form of Auroville. There's a lot of circularity at its core, and then it kinds of opens up when it goes outside. Just think about the street. You have let's say in Pondicherry, you have a very grid pattern, straight going street. And when you start walking in the street, there is an end to that street. Actually you're focusing to something. Now think about another street where actually it's curved, it's very circular. When you start walking down the thing, you actually can't keep a focus on anything. Your eyes actually starts moving, looking at different aspects. And one of the key things which actually might happen is you start to give up your past visions. You start accumulating new things. Then you unload old things. Then you add new things. So there's a constant process of actually using your five senses as to how you dump, and then you keep adding things, and then you assimilate it, and then you keep moving forward. Now what happens out of it is obviously you start interacting. You unknowingly you start looking at people. You start making eye contacts. You start to look at certain places of focus, and that is where let's say for example in Auroville you have this Matru Mandir, and after all these things, when you really look at Matru Mandir, you actually you try to focus on Matru Mandir. So you also have a way of how your eyes move, and it tries to actually seek the things, information, what it wants to do. In this aspect, I think the form of a town is very, very important. And especially when you just think about youngsters, like, starting to move in it, like, traveling in it, making a dialogue with the people, what you end up is a possibility to have quite a lot of cross-pollination of ideas where, like, people and mind can actually integrate, which can transcend the border of, like, your caste, creed, religion, race, whatever it is. Like, you start to actually you start to focus on gaining knowledge. And that is what actually, like, would happen when you have something which is a vision-driven city like Auroville, which is it's very strongly focused on knowledge. In fact, like, the charter itself says it's a place of unending education. And it's very heartening to know, like, that it's been very clearly made by the mother that it has to be, like, about education. Yes. So I just wanted to add this point when Nahar made this conversation, something, because it just came out of, yeah.
One thing I want to add is that we're talking about the account of Srivatsa, is that I learned when I worked on it with him, is that the fact that we have a circular road means you see a new vision every time. That when you see a straight street, you're really looking at a wall at the end. But when it's a circular road, every time you see something different. So it keeps your mind very refreshed, as opposed to very
No, we have Mahima. Could you come forward? Yeah, yes. Could you just quickly introduce? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mahima Podar, and I'm the founder of the Kindness Foundation. I'm really grateful and appreciate the opportunity to share some of my thoughts in this very erudite and august environment. So thank you for, can you hear me now? Is this better? Okay, all right. So, thank you for giving me your time, listening to some thoughts that I'd like to share with you. Whether we like it or not, we have all been born into this world as part of one great human family, rich or poor, educated or uneducated, belonging to one nation or another, to one religion or another, adhering to this ideology or that. Ultimately, each of it is just a human being, like everyone else. We all desire happiness and do not want suffering. So, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow advocates for human unity, I'm here in front of you today with a heart full of passion to address a topic of utmost significance and urgency that I feel is the need of the hour today. Attaining the supermind through human unity and education. This is an idea that not only has the power to revolutionize the world, but also revolutionize our understanding of ourselves as interconnected beings. The supermind in Sri Aurobindo's teachings is like a radiant bridge that connects the deepest part of our inner selves, our unchanging spirit, with the ever-changing world around us. It's like a divine force that helps us transform from ordinary individuals into something extraordinary and divine. Just as the supermind transforms us individually, it also works to bring people together in a shared understanding and harmony. It's like the heartbeat of oneness that makes us feel deeply connected to each other, like members of a big, loving family. As the mother once said, all human beings are of the same divine origin and meant to manifest upon earth the unity of this origin. The only way to truly and permanently have peace on earth is if we all understand that we are connected as humans, as a species. The most crucial thing, and the one we need to focus on urgently, is changing how we all think and how we see the world. We need to become more aware and open-minded in how we understand and interact with each other. This profound statement encapsulates the potential we share. From teachers molding minds to students forging paths towards progress. It is through education that we develop the abilities to expand our horizons, dream bigger, and unite for a greater cause. I want to take a moment to share a small story with you. In a peaceful village by the sea, there was a wise teacher named Guruji. He was known for his profound knowledge and his ability to guide people toward greater understanding. One day, some children gathered around Guruji and they asked him, Guruji, What is the supermind? Guruji smiled kindly and said, "My dear children, the supermind is like a vast ocean of wisdom and light. It is a state of consciousness where all knowledge, kindness, and unity come together." The children were intrigued but confused. "But how can we experience the supermind?" they asked. Guruji nodded and he told them a story. Once upon a time, there was an island where people lived in separate villages. Each village had its own way of doing things and they rarely interacted with each other. One day, a young girl named Arya had a dream. Okay, so I've been told I have to wrap this up, so I'll quickly tell you the story and draw my conclusions from there, but I had a lot of other ideas I wanted to put across. Anyway, so the girl named Arya had a dream and she saw a beautiful garden at the center of the island, glowing with a radiant light. A wise old woman appeared and told Arya the garden represented the supermind, a place where all knowledge and goodness were shared. Excited, Arya told her dream to the people of her village. They decided to invite the other villagers to a grand festival in the garden where they could learn, share, and celebrate together. As the festival approached, villagers from all corners of the island came together. They brought books, stories, and crafts from their villages and taught each other new skills. And most importantly, they showed kindness to each other. Under the banyan tree in the center of the garden, the people gathered. And the Guruji stood before them and said, "In this garden of the supermind, you have shown that when you come together with open hearts, you create a space where kindness, unity, and knowledge flourish. And so, whenever you show kindness to others, whenever you learn and share, you create a glimpse of the supermind right here on earth." So how does supermind get connected with education and with human unity? It is through the one simple quality of kindness. And that is what my belief is. Thank you.
Beautiful. We would like to invite in between, we have a few more speakers, but we have a very special guest, N. Ravi. Would you just come and tell us a few, share a few words with us?
Good morning, all. My name is N. Ravi. I'm the chairman of the Hindu group of newspapers. I'm not too schooled in the philosophy of Aurobindo, except in a very rudimentary sense, so pardon my digression a bit. This is my third visit here, and always found some kind of inner peace when stepping into the portals of Auroville. We are all in the age of enlightenment, and as you know, enlightenment stands on 4 pillars. First, of reason. Second, science. Third, humanism. And fourth is progress. And I think in Auroville, to have these enlightenment ideals taken to its highest form in the quest for the supermind. So I am thankful to all of you, the scholars, the residents of Auroville, and those who run the institution for this quest, which is taking us all to another place. Thank you.
Yeah, please. We will have to wrap up soon. So now, who is left now? Yes, Ashok, please come.
Good morning, all of you. I am, I think, very odd person in this group. I am Dr. Ashok Bade. I am former professor of anesthesia. And I was supposed to speak on 2 topics. One is consciousness, and one is the importance of unity. So first, a couple of lines only I will talk about consciousness. It is very ironical to tell the anesthetist to make people unconscious, to talk on consciousness. But you must say that I have experience to make people unconscious, and then again bring them back to the consciousness. And what is consciousness? Consciousness is awareness between the interior milieu and the external milieu. And why do we want to do it? So that you can achieve a divine by combining the internal milieu with the external milieu and achieve a divine life. Then a few words about the importance of unity. As you all know, the present world is in a very, very turmoil. And what said in our civilization that it is a present Kali Yuga. So I just want to tell one thing. Why do you think that unity is important? And how we can achieve it? And at what level it is required? See, unity is required at various levels. In our ancient civilization, our Vedic culture, and it is already mentioned that we have what is called as a Vasudeva Kutumbakam. So that world is one. So when you live in the world with the diverse cultures, people from diverse religions, people from diverse cultures, people from diverse nations, to live in a global world or a global village, what they call it, is very important that we should have a unity. I will just give a few examples. When there is an outbreak in a city, of being a doctor, I will be just, I think, talking more of related to the medicine and patient care. So when there is an outbreak in a village, like you say cholera outbreak, what we have to do, a doctor cannot manage alone. He will have to take all the people that you have, doctors, you have the technicians, you have the PWD workers, you have the sanitation workers, you have the administrators, civil administrators, who have to work in unity to get the outbreak under control and take care of it. Similarly, what we have seen during the recent cyclone that happened in Gujarat and Rajasthan, what has happened in that? If only one government or one group of people would have thought, we would not have been able to manage the problems of the cyclone with very, very less harm to the society and to the whole town. Similarly, as all of us have seen now, what has happened at a global level. But from 2019 to 2021, all of us were knowing the problems that have occurred because of the COVID-19 epidemic. And you mind well, we would not have been able to control the epidemic if we would not have worked as a global village, and a global unity is not there, we would not have been able to control. And for that, everybody has to take a part. One nation cannot say that I will not be involved into that. Because unless all of us unite to work for a common cause, then only we can take off the challenge. And all of us, I think, like our nation has given vaccine to everybody. To most of the countries in the world, the vaccine was given, and we were able to control the epidemic in our country and help the other countries also to sort out the issues of the epidemic. So like this, unity is very, very important in life, in workplace, in a city, in a nation, in a world, in a global village. So with this, I thank the organizers for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We would just like to return to the topic of the Supermind. Deshpande ji, we had interrupted you. Lakshay will put one or two questions. So we'll keep it short also. And after that, everybody is invited because there's tea being served outside and there. You can go and have some tea. And lunch will be served at the Tamil Heritage Center. Once you go out, you will be directed. Lunch is going to be served over there. So over to you, Lakshay.
Thank you. As time is drawing to a close, I would rather posit these questions as not just for the panelists, also for everyone to take back and ponder. Coming back to the topic of the day, aspiring for Supermind, I would like to pose this to Dr. Belu and say, and Anmolji, why do we need to aspire for a Supermind in today's context? What I mean is, and also by the way, we have all gathered here to commemorate Sri Aurobindo's 150th birth anniversary. In a week, it will be 151 birth anniversary of Sri Aurobindo. And this reminds us every year, perhaps this could be an occasion where we read 5 dreams of Sri Aurobindo and remind what he said for New India. And that takes me to the first dream of Sri Aurobindo, United India. So in the context of now India being the one amongst the 5 top economies, and the new advances like also Naha touched upon ChatGPT kind of world, artificial intelligence, in your view, does it necessitate or does it facilitate the progress towards higher consciousness? And the second is, how do we cross this rainbow bridge between the mind and the supermind? Srinivasji, this is to you. You touched upon the individual, perhaps, steps we can take. So for the city of consciousness, for the city of New Dawn, what can be the steps for collective consciousness? And what are the telltales, Deshpandeji, this is for you. What are the telltales that kind of shows us that we could be on the path towards a higher consciousness? The last one is also for Gautam Goshalji and Deshpandeji. Sorry. And if anyone has some questions, you may come here. Better that way, no?
So,
if I may,
in any particular order, or should
no? Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to open up the conversation, coming back to the main topic.
Yeah. Sure. So I think I really appreciate this connection that you made with Aurobindo's first dream, the unity of nation, India as a nation, because I think, as has been also pointed out by our guest Asif Aliji, the idea of interreligious unity or all those interfaith dialogues, what Supermind, because Supermind is not only truth consciousness, it's also the consciousness of unity. Only when that we are kind of poised in that kind of higher consciousness that is beyond mind. Aurobindo at one place describes beautifully the mind consciousness, which is the kind of creation, the world that we see. Works by division. Overmind works by union in division, but only supermind works in union. Supermind is a Unitarian consciousness. So the fact that we are all aspiring to rise higher connects with the fact that we are also aspiring for an inner, deeper unity, because as Mother has also said, the age of religion is over. And what unites us is the seeking for the higher consciousness. No matter which religious background or which caste or creed, those are all outer things. And this is where I think India has the potential to lead the world, because India alone speaks about, as a civilization, we have spoken about this constant seeking, this constant attempt to transcend all that imprisons us in our current identity, whether it is of the birth, nationality, language, religion. So this idea of transcendence, which is also connecting us back to the aspiration for that higher consciousness beyond mind, which is a Unitarian consciousness, is the key to bringing the unity at a deeper level. And Auroville as a city showing the way is leading there. So I think that's what I would say at this point, and invite Anmol.
Thank you.
The question was asked, why should we aspire for the supermind in the current context? See, the world has become one practically, with the advance of technology and progress that has happened in other spheres of human existence, society, politics, etc., etc. The fact is that externally we are becoming more and more one. We are one. The internet was not there, let's say 30 years ago in India, now it's there. But that is external oneness, okay? It doesn't mean anything unless the internal oneness is there. And supermind is a consciousness of oneness. The Ishopanishad says, Tatra ko mohaha kahashoka ekatvam anupashyataha. Where can there be delusion or grief when you perceive the oneness? You could flip it around and say, unless you feel the oneness, you can never really be free from delusion and sorrow. The Taittiriya Upanishad says, whatever that you do not feel as yourself, you will be afraid of it. So, it says that about the Brahman, that if you do not realize your unity with the Brahman, it will become a source of fear for you, right? Aurobindo, just the last comment I'll make, thought from the Ishopanishad, he sums it up so beautifully. It's, I think, on the last page of Savitri itself. To feel love and oneness is to live, right? So my stress here is on the aspect of oneness of the supermind And that we need, that inner oneness. You know, we are all the one self, the same divine, we are all manifestations of the same divinity. It is to realize that oneness, and Supermind is oneness. It's not the perfect Unitarian consciousness, as he explains, that's the Satchidananda, but that is spaceless and timeless. But when you come to space and time, the unity is manifested first in the supramental consciousness. So to aspire for that unity in the true way, in the inner way. We are externally united, but you know, it can be a hypocrisy. Yeah. The real unity is from within in the self.
Yes, please, Gautamji, if you can also bring in the necessity of psychic self.
Hello. So I was trying to speak with reference to Srinivasji's talk. In fact, it pointed to Supermind. Yes. Exactly. And in Synthesis of Yoga, Sri Aurobindo, I almost quote him. Whenever the psychic being is opened, it starts pressing you towards the super. That is one thing. And then Srinivasji said about surrender, total surrender. That comes from the Gita. So why is Sri Aurobindo speaking of the Gita from 1960 to 1920 when he was already speaking of the supermind? Gita is not from the supermind, because the base has to be prepared. Secondly, there are three things happening simultaneously in Sri Aurobindo's yoga: a deepening of consciousness, a widening of consciousness, and a heightening of consciousness. And the three things are happening with the help of the psychic, and I don't think that the overmind should be neglected like this, because much of the supermind principles trickle down to the overmind. That makes that widening possible. Widening can be possible from the psychic, because you can see plenty of psychic poetry from Kabir and Rabindranath Tagore. But also, when it comes from the supermind, the widening is there. And from the widening, you can have that cosmic consciousness. From overmind, you can have that. From the psychic being, you have that. But when you cross over, then there are also gradations of the supermind.
Right.
And Sri Aurobindo has spoken of the gradations of the supermind, the life divine, synthesis of yoga, and also at other places, and the mother, where he speaks of the highest supramental consciousness. There is a phrase in the mother. So these things have to be kept in mind. We have to prepare the base. Neglect entirely. That is why Sri Aurobindo gave extreme importance on essays on the Gita. Because you know, not only Eshadi, but Sri Aurobindo talks to many other people.
Yeah.
We are all mental beings. And it is absolutely futile to talk the way in which supermind can work. Yet, you can have some perception of it, some idea of it, some way of looking at things. I will give you a little negative example to start with. It is very mischievous on the part of one who was closest to the divine to say that there is French Matri Mandir, there is German Matri Mandir, there is Italian Matri Mandir, there is Indian Matri Mandir. Now, this kind of mischievousness which comes in spite of one's association directly with divine himself is something most dangerous. And I think, he is the person also goes and says, there is American management, there is German management, there is society management, there is ashram management, there is Auroville management. Now, all these are mischiefs which are being played for wrong and hostile reasons. We have to be clear of them. We have to immediately dismiss them and see what exactly is the reality behind all of them. Each one has a truth of its own. Yet, there is nothing like French Matrimandir or German Matrimandir or Indian Matrimandir. Matrimandir is one. And that Matrimandir is the one which is the creation of the divine creator himself of the Supermind. Supermind sees all the extensive possibilities in this creation and allows them to express themselves so that each possibility can recognize its own divine quality. That is the whole. You are in the creation here with a certain purpose. It is that purpose or divine quality which you have to discover and put into manifestation. Now that is the role which Supermind plays. Our mind has no capacity to do that. Our ranges have absolutely no hold on them. In fact, if you go further down, it's to conflicts and hostilities and disharmonies. So I think we should be distinct in these things. And the only way for us is we are just mental beings. We had to cross stages beyond the mind. The post-human potentials had to be first discovered. The entire hierarchy of potentials has to be discovered of Yuda, Saraswati, Dakshina, Yuda, Saraswati, Mahi. It is in them that we have to start working and climb up and then try to get something in them of this Supermind, which is very eager to come and pour itself into us. Well, he's asking about the mind of light. That is a unique contribution of Aurobindo. Absolutely unique. And it has come in the pragmatism of things. The mind of light is essentially the physical mind, not the physical mind, but the physical mind, or the body, or the cells, or the living organism, its mind, which is open to supramental light and force. Open to the supramental light and force. And when that starts working in us, then the real work of Supermind starts getting initiated, the cosmic manifestation. Aurovindo's entire tapasya in the last few years was to see that the mind of light is formed up creation. Not only he established that thing entirely in himself, but at the time of his withdrawal, passing away on 5th December 1950 at around 1 a.m., the mother was standing by the side of his bed, and they were looking into each other's eyes for a long time. And then, at that moment, came to signal her, his eyes, go away. Go away. Because he could not withdraw when the mother herself was present there. How can he withdraw? How can she allow him to go? That was the occult reason. He was asked to go away. And within a short time, withdrew to the other world, the realm of reality. Now, when they were looking into each other, the mother said later on, What had happened was all the supramental force which he had accumulated in his body, that he had transmitted into me. Mind of light which was established in Aurobindo, that mind of light got transferred for the purposes of manifestation into the mother, and with that mother's agenda began. To such a point that at a stage she said that for physical transformation, what is necessary is that the psychic being has to materialize. It is the psychic being which will materialize. It is the psychic being which will give immortality and integrity to creation. So the materialization psychic being is the greatest achievement of the mother in her sadhana. And she has done it, she has established it, and that is how the work is going on. Now against all these things, when you talk of Dharman, Matri Mandir, French Matri Mandir, Indian Matri Mandir, very disappointed. You feel how perverse human can be. Is that perversity which is being exploited by the hostile. Because of our difficulties. Take for instance the difficulties of Auroville lies in the agenda. It is because of the agenda that we are facing all these difficulties. Looks a little paradoxical. But agenda means complete realization of the supramental possibilities, the physical world here. And how can the greatest hostile accept that God of nation? He raise his head and employ every trick to see that it is stopped, delayed, terminated. Now, it is against that kind of a fight that we had to prepare ourselves. Prepare in the sense that fight, we can't do that fight. I can't do that fight. Human can't do that fight. Only she can do that. But our response, our openness, should be that we lend ourselves for that thing. And we need instruments. And unless those are there, I will say entire complex of position, manifestation in this creation, being opposed vehemently the forces of inconscience. Now, our struggle, we have to recognize that, and we don't have to run for that purpose to the courts. What can the court solve this? What can the court? Nothing. So, I would say that is that aspect which you have to recognize.
Thank you, Deshpandeji. I mean, wherever the story that came from about Matrimandir, it's quite alarming, to say the least. Let me get back to Srinivas ji. Sir, how do you see, I mean, you said you manage the institutions in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. What is the role that you see of Auroville playing in the collective kind of work towards this higher consciousness? And if you can also comment on Gautamji's remark that Overmind is also trying to, push for the higher consciousness, right? It's a two-way kind of struggle. What's your opinion on it?
As we take forward Sri Aurobindo's work in various parts of the world, I mean, each of our organizations and each of our ecosystems is trying to work in various ways. The way I see it, Ashram in Pondicherry seems to be the field of intensive work at the individual level in the yoga of Supermind. Auroville to me represents with 50 nationalities coming together in a strong collective as probably the broadening and universalization of the supramental yoga across natures, across cultures, and so on and so forth. And as you had mentioned earlier, the individual and the collective have both a significant symbiotic relationship between them. The individual, as of now, still struggling with the basics of yoga, inability to control the mind and establish a certain basic silence, preparation of the mind, as one of the earlier speakers had said. The difficulty all of us face about abdicating the ego in favor of the larger work. We all struggle with that. And surrender, even though Sri Aurobindo says it is the first and last word of integral yoga, surrender of all one is and has, surrender of one's character. I mean, these are all elements that we are struggling with. And as Deshpandeji just pointed out, and in the quote that I had read of the mother earlier, the individual striving for the psychic realizations in which all of these come together is probably the first stepping stone of integral yoga towards the supramental realization. And there are studies of consciousness across societies. And one of the interesting studies that I came across pointed out that if we take the median level of consciousness, I mean, these researchers have their way of calibrating mathematically. We will not go into that. When they did studies of societies based on the individual levels of consciousness, many studies indicated that at the median level of consciousness we are, our behavioral patterns lead towards disharmony and destruction of the society as we stand today and over the last few centuries. Then the next question came as to how did we survive? We survived because there have been a few outliers on the right side, a few people of exceptional levels of consciousness who were elevating the average level of consciousness and holding us together. This further emphasizes the need for individual preparation for this lofty goal so that the individual helps, the few individuals who are outliers help elevate the average level of consciousness, and we are able to sustain this movement towards higher consciousness. So this is how the individuals, each of us, and I mean this is no longer a theoretical construct, it hits home. Unless each of us works towards a psychic realization, we are probably more a liability than an asset in this journey of humanity. So there is a responsibility we need to take and walk away at the end of this session, that we will work towards some of these elements becoming a reality. As far as Auroville and the rest of the society and ashram, all of us working together, I have been a part of the initiative that Jaya had taken up on sourcing oneness. We have been collaborating by sending individuals from various branches and centers in the Telugu states, and I myself have participated in sourcing oneness programs that we have been conducting in Nainital over the years. So let us all collaborate, and I'm sure we will find more beautiful ways of flowering together.
Beautiful. Thank you, Srinivasji. Okay, is there anything else? Gautamji, anyone from the panel? Final thoughts? And then we have Neerja with us to give a few lines, please.
Actually,
and then we have a film also. Yes, Gautamji.
Just, I liked Srinivasji's talk very much, because he was also speaking the base like me, and he spoke of the psychic being. Basic thing which is, and this Pandiji also spoke, the flowering of the psyche, the divine Agni, and then surrender comes from that, because psychic is related to bhakti. So that is important, and unless that comes about the individuals, chapter 4 of the Life Divine, Aurobindo has spoken of this. if there is one individual liberated in one corner of the globe, there is one individual liberated in one corner of the globe, it will spread all over the globe. You can find it in chapter 4 in the Life Divine, first part. So that is important. I liked Srinivasji's talk very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Neerja ji.
The divinity in me bows down to the divinity in all of you. It's wonderful to be here, but I'm going to tell you that everything begins at home. I have twins. They're now 33, but when they could speak, I taught them to say the Gayatri Mantra. I taught them to say Ikumkar Satnam. I taught them to say La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. And I taught them to say, thank you, God, for the world so sweet. Thank you, God, for the food we eat. And then I said, you know, God, the fifth thing you have to do is, God is your friend. You can talk to him about your day. You can talk to him about your troubles. He's there for you. So for a very long time, they didn't know who they were. And one day they came to me and they said, Mama, what are we? And I said, what do you mean? No, are we Hindu? Are we Muslim? Are we Sikh? Are we Christians? What are we? I was zapped. I said, why do you ask this? They went to a friend's home. There was a beautiful ornate room. And they said, what is this? Their eyes popped. And she said, don't you have a puja room in your house? And they said, well, my mother's got all this. Our mother has it on shelves and drawers everywhere. Then she said, what do you pray? So they stood up and they said the Gayatri Mantra, quickly followed by the, Ikumkar Satnam, Laila, and thank you, God. And she said, what are you? They said, no, then we talk to God. The fifth thing is we talk to God. But what are you? They said, what? Meaning? Are you Hindu? Are you Muslim? Are you Sikh? Are you Christian? So they came home. Mama, what are we? They told me the whole story, and this is what I told them. I said, if anyone asks you, what are you? Just say that you are a citizen of the world. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised when my daughter at age 14, I had to take her to the hospital. And the sign said, religion. And I was stumped. I wrote Indian because it covers everything. You know what my daughter did? She snatched the pen from my hand. She scratched out Indian, and I was wondering what she's going to say, right? She wrote universal. I thanked God that day. Because when things begin at home like this, they don't care who their friends are. They're human beings. And I think that if we start like that in schools, in colleges, when the kids are open and moldable, we will bring about a united human force. Because, by the way, as every master says, as every saint says, we live to love and we love to live in oneness. Thank you so much.
Lakshmi, thank you.
I have a 2-minute film from Mother's Garden team. Vani play pandring. Sounder come. 3 minutes 47 seconds.
So we have Rabi, Poonam, Naren sir here. Bharat is part of the team. They initiated a program to start to plant 898 different flowers and species which Mother has given significances to. And Supriti is here. Supriti and I are partners. We are architects working out of Pondicherry, and we are both devotees. And we have put up our team has put up a presentation of what the Mother's Flower Garden would be, and also a little bit of the architecture that we are now putting together. It's coming very next to Solar Kitchen. It's a 5-acre property. And all that I wanted to say is there in a poem that comes at the end. But I'll just, for paucity of time, I just say that twice I was really moved. One, when I heard Mother ask, "What will you do for me?" And once when Sri Aurobindo said, "Beat me more, Lord." And what we see is that a flower is not anxious to become a flower when it's a seed. There's something else. It has blind faith that it would. And then when it becomes a flower, it just goes to the Mother's feet. So as the Matri Mandir gardens are like a garland around I'll just conclude by saying 4 lines. Gardener's hands. Stop it. Gardener's hands. Calluses are the beauty of those tender, caring hands. Oh, how do the flowers believe they were born beautiful? माली की हाथों की शोभा उनमें पड़े कैलस जैसे होते हैं. फूलों को लगता रंग उनके, वो रंग पर कहाँ मिलते हैं. Thank you.
As we're coming slowly to a close of the session, we'll read a few lines from the Savitri, as we know, the magnus opus verse of Sri Aurobindo. Just a few lines on supramental, and then we'll just keep a minute or two of silence because I think it's been a lot of information and your patience through the chaos that has happened. But I guess that's how it was happen or meant to happen, despite the best of the effort and behind the scenes work it's come. My sincere apologies that despite the best intention and effort to serve each one of you, this is the best that happened. So I really seek your apologies, but I also am in grateful, heartfelt gratitude for understanding, for being really gracious with your patience with me. I'm moved to tears right now because I really feel touched, at the same time small that the plans failed, but also the fact that maybe this is what it was, and I'm learning to be graceful even here. I really want to say I'm sorry, and thank you. It means a lot to me, yeah?
This is Book 11, the Book of Everlasting Day. A divine force shall flow through tissue and cell and take the charge of breath and speech and act, and all the thoughts shall be a glow of suns, and every feeling a celestial thrill. Often a lustrous inner dawn shall come, lighting the chambers of the slumbering mind. A sudden bliss shall run through every limb, and nature with a mightier presence fill. Thus shall the earth open to divinity, and common natures feel the wide uplift. Illumine common acts with the Spirit's ray, and meet the deity in common things. Nature shall live to manifest secret God. The Spirit shall take up the human play. This earthly life become the life divine.